You're listening to the Yeshiva of Newark at IDT podcast. I'm your host and curator, Rabbi Abram Kibalevich, and I hope you enjoy this episode. You've bought your tickets. The ushers are about to open the doors. Yes, the Projectionist has Semicha is about to start. But first, if you own a retail business and accept credit cards, your customers are getting points, miles, and all sorts of rewards every time they use their card. And you're paying the price. That's why NRS Pay, a product of National Retail Solutions, a division of the IDT Corporation, offers its cash discount program FeeBuster. You can start accepting credit cards for free. If your business processes over $18,000 a month, you pay no monthly fee and $0 out of your pocket for transaction. This means you, as a retailer, can enjoy the benefits of accepting plastic, and your customers still get those crucial miles they crave and need. NRS Pay FeeBuster provides every client with a free credit card reader with no long-term contract, no early termination fee, cancel anytime without a penalty. I'm personally familiar with this company, and they truly stand by their product, and they'll help you with live, stateside-based customer service on any issue or question. Visit nrspay.com or call 833-289-2767 to learn more about NRS Pay and the fantastically fair FeeBuster. Clear the aisles. The Projectionist has Semicha. Hi, I'm here with Yitzchak Kolakowski. Actually, I'm never really here with him. And many times Yitzchak, of course, is careening through the woods, trying to avoid cows. Today, Yitzchak, where are you? You're somewhere in, as Harry Chapin would say, on the hill leading into Scranton, Pennsylvania. You remember 30,000 pounds of bananas?
Yeah, I'm on the way. Yeah, I got some bananas. I got some.
Yes. Oh, Lord, make it a dream. Remember that? That was Harry Chapin about the truck driver. So I hope you're doing okay. You got you some bananas, not 30,000 pounds of squash bananas, but you're on your way. And as your audio might kick out soon, as you somehow go behind one of the Poconos hills or mountains, let's start talking about one of your favorite films, something that is very dear to you. It's been in the public domain for a very long time, and anybody who wants to, has Prime Video, of course, can watch it. Perhaps maybe with less.
Prime Video, you can watch on YouTube. You can watch it. I first saw it on VHS.
Right. And we're talking about Who Killed Doc Robbin. It was meant to be the second series of Curly and his gang. Larry Olson, I guess would you say a prepubescent young man, or he was already a teenager?
No, he was probably 9 or 10 years old.
9 or 10. He and his group of friends, who look and act very similar to a group of kids from about 20 years earlier, the original R Gang. In fact, they're really based on the R Gang characters, and they were basically brought together by the creator of the R Gang son, Hal Roach Jr. Figured, his dad had a great hit with the R Gang group, and they, of course, by the time this film came out, Who Killed Doc Robbin, which is from 1948, they had all grown up basically, and were off to various hills and dales and wars and other things. So everybody still had a great nostalgia for the original R Gang. So I guess Hal Roach Jr. felt, hey, maybe we can once again reinvent this series. And again, it was before television took off. And the idea was they would make a number of these films. And of course, this film is only 55 minutes. The film that preceded that, which of course is Curly, was 50. Not meant to be like the R Gang shorts, which lasted, I guess each one was about 10 to 12 minutes. These movies, this was meant to be like almost, as we said, a full length television program, like these 55 to 1 hour films. And I guess Hal Roach Jr. thought he was maybe going to have a series. similar to what we talked about last week, Dagwood and Blondie. Now, you picked for the one that means more to you is not the first one,
I don't
Curly.
think I ever saw the first one, to be honest.
You never seen the first one?
No,
but
I'll
I
have
guess
to look for it.
the first one has quite a terrible pedigree in that when it came out in 1947, I was not born yet, but the town that I am from, Memphis, refused to show this film because the group of kids were shown in school together, and they were, of course, there was, of course, black children in the classroom as well. And this was considered something Southern audiences.
The two black children, this and that. So it shows how things that are seen as maybe too progressive for some audiences can still be stereotypical and unfortunate. It wasn't necessarily the best portrayal, was maybe even, less politically correct than the original Our Gang, which, has had its share of controversies and urban legends. The famous, and very false urban legend was that Bill Cosby bought up the rights to all the Our Gang, the Little Rascals, as they were known on TV, because he didn't want anyone to see, these types of racist shows, and that just wasn't true at all. And
I think if we start talking about Our Gang, we'll probably reach that mountain in the Poconos, and you're going to probably be short circuited. This was, suffice to say, it was trying to build on some of the spirit and sweetness, and I guess a little bit of the puckishness of Our Gang, sort of a little bit of chutzpah that they had.
I'll be honest, I enjoyed this more than Our Gang. I felt that the children, in this gang, they called him Curly and his gang, I think is how it was sometimes presented, because I think there were television prints of Who Killed Doc Robbin that were Curly and his gang in the haunted house.
Who killed Doc Robbin? Yeah, Bernard Carr is the director. We don't know much about him, but we do know one of your favorite actors, George Zucco, is the doc himself, right? Who, I guess there's a lab explosion, and the question is, is it the beautiful girl? Is she their teacher or something? Or I don't know why they get involved with this, but Virginia Gray originally is the sort of the cheesecake here, the Mrs. Crabtree.
She was a radio actress. She was in a lot of radio shows at around that time. She was in another, I believe, was also Cinecolor film, a rather strange film called Unknown Island, which is more strange just because there weren't that many dinosaur movies in the 40s, especially post-war 40s, and this was a color film. Might have to talk about that another time. That featured, going to an island with dinosaurs. That the same.
Yeah, I mean, Virginia Gray had been in movies since she was a little girl. She'd been in silent films as well. But she was the sort of the Mrs. Crabtree that the kids all sort of feel like they need to protect. And it's got, I guess it's got everything a little bit in it in the 55 or 56 minutes. You got a lab that blows up. You've got a trial, and I think you told me that you felt that the courtroom scene with the kids disrupting and coming in to testify was a hoot for you.
Yeah, it inspired me as a child. I remember one summer we made a summer. There's a little youth center in the little rural town where I grew up. And we made a little play, and I called it Who Killed Doc Robbin. I changed the story quite a bit, but most of the story was surrounding the trial. And part of the trial, though, was taken from, ripped off really from Disorder in the Stooges short, which itself was a lot of vaudeville acts that had been, I saw Buster Keaton do the same the same acts that Curly did in Disorder in the Court. So
I see. So you felt you had license to base yourself on these two classics, and of course it was done there under the auspices of executive produced by Deborah Winger herself, right?
That's right. Yeah, she was our drama teacher for that. I wrote the play and I mostly directed it.
So let's talk about this show. I know that the Yitzhak Kolakowski's life story has yet to be made. I don't know who's going to be playing you. I'm not sure. It's going to be it might be one of the most expressionist, films. We might need Terrence Malick to come in and, make it like a 6-hour epic. So tell me, let's just say, I mean, again, here's a show. You're going to find it easily on free television, on YouTube, on Prime, if you're a member. Are you going to laugh? Are you going to enjoy it? Is it going to bring back? You're saying you weren't a Little Rascals fan. Little Rascals, of course, the R Gang had a couple of different iterations. Little Rascals itself has been tried to be brought back. I didn't see any of those really, maudlin and very weak attempts of trying to capture again what was great about that time period of America with the Little Rascals. You feel that the youth here do a great job. The kids are believable as actors in your mind. They sound like the lines are coming from their neshama, so to speak, as opposed to reading from cards.
I think maybe it might be the other way around. The original Our Gang were just regular kids and they weren't acting. And here, the Mila was that these kids knew how to act. I think they knew how to memorize lines. It wasn't just, it almost felt like when you watch the original Our Gang, it almost felt a lot of the time there wasn't any script. Almost seemed like it just kind of fell together.
Yeah, a little. It sort of has that.
It was never good.
I think especially the very early ones, the ones with not the ones with Spanky, but actually with Jackie Cooper in it, and from the earlier period, I think that those were those had a little bit of they had a sort of almost a ad-libbed, cinema verite sense. But again, look, we're talking about this one. Even someone who hasn't seen the All Gang, even some
characters, I think, are much better developed characters. They're, even though they're tropes, there's the brainy kid, and there's the little girl who has a speech impediment, and there's the black kids, which are presented in a really horrifically racist way, actually. And then just Curly is their leader, and I think it comes out a lot more solid. I'll tell you, the original Our Gang, a lot of those shorts, they seem a lot longer than they are. When you tell me that they're 12 minutes each, they usually feel like they're about 20 minutes each. I don't know. Except the silent ones. I did enjoy the silent ones, but those are not as well known. But the talkies, the ones that were generally shown on television, just kind of rubbed me the wrong way. This movie, it hits the right notes. It's not a great film. It's not a brilliant, work of art, but it hits all those right notes.
Okay, so tell me, Yitzhak, your children are different than maybe some other kids. They have distinct sense of what they like and what they don't like. They have been raised by connoisseurs, you and your wife. Would from our listening audience, you think they could watch this with their kids and enjoy it?
You could watch it with your kids. I don't know if my kids would enjoy it, but it's certainly something that it's a movie made for kids, more or less, and it, and it has all those aspects.
I think it's got a gorilla in it too, right? There's some gorilla in this as well, right?
Yeah, there's a man in a gorilla suit. There's the haunted house. There's all this stuff, and George Zuko is always an interesting character. His personal life, I don't know how much you want to talk about, but his
how much is he in this film?
Surprisingly, more than you would think for a character who's apparently killed off.
We're giving stuff away now. I see. Okay, yeah. Spoilers ahead. Okay, so who killed Doc Robbin? And especially if you want to turn the controls on YouTube to see it on 1.5. It'll only take around. I want to offer what was considered one of Frank Tashlin's greatest achievements, which is will success spoil Rock Hunter. It was based on a play, but it really wasn't. Frank Tashlin just took the name and some of the characters and basically decided to pretty much skewer totally and completely the television industry and basically where the movie industry was going. I think the film has been preserved for being aesthetically important or something. I'm not sure. It was a Fox film, and from the beginning of this film, which was made in 1957, it is, I think, the Airplane of its day. I don't know if you've ever seen Airplane, the Zucker brothers or The Naked Gun or
Shirley.
Yes. Don't call me Shirley. But anyway, it's in a way the Airplane, although it doesn't have the rapid fire, throw everything in the kitchen sink. Almost every other line is some sort of dig or shtuch, double entendre. It's got, I think it's, one of Tony Randall's best performances. He was somewhat of a young fellow in 1957. He made it. He is, it was entrusted to carry this film. The film is about a advertising man who comes from Harvard, and this is, of course, the only job he can find. And what he's trying to do is what he's been doing, although he's been Harvard educated, he's been writing jingles for television commercials. And by the way, the credits don't begin with some music, but they actually, over the credits, over the actual writing, what you see is examples of probably actual ridiculous television commercials or satirical takes on what television commercials were. And they're very similar to what Carol Burnett, of course, did for years on her variety show, which was, to talk about the commercials of the past year, and of course send them up. Tashlin was doing this. Tashlin had a career, I believe, in cartoons, and then he went in to make feature films. Artists and Models, of course, is a famous film that he made that has Martin and Lewis. I think perhaps the last film that they made together, and I think you can see some of the tension in there. But some people think it's the best Lewis and Martin film because it's really partakes of a wild aspect. It's sort of wild and crazy. It also was a satire on the comic book industry. That was what Artists and Models were. Well, Success Boy Rock Hunter really takes a knife, a machine gun, a machete onto everything. Television for sure. Television is, in fact, there's what happens is that they need to create a series of television commercials for Stay Put lipstick, and somehow Tony Randall's character Rockwell Hunter has a teenage niece that's living with him. It's never explained exactly why. And she is part of the great fan club for the Marilyn Monroe character that is played by a Marilyn Monroe type character, Jane Mansfield. Jane Mansfield, of course, quite a bit taller and more statuesque than Marilyn Monroe, plays a character called Rita Marlowe. And, Rita Marlowe sounds like Marilyn Monroe. And, she even, the movies that supposedly, Rita Marlowe had been, was a combination of Jane Mansfield's own flops and some of Marilyn's films. Joan Blondell is in this film as well. Joan Blondell, in fact, sort of makes fun of, of sex symbols and bombshells. She had been a tremendous actress, a tremendous comedian and actress. In her time. We've talked about her. I talked about her role in Nightmare Alley, which was about, I guess, 8 years before this. But in this film, she sort of plays a woman over the hill who's the attendant of this starlet. And the starlet is a bubblehead and who's, in a way, crafting everything for her, for the fans, to create a phony narrative about what's really going on in her life. But also supposedly connected to the real love of her life, which is to make jealous this Tarzan the Ape Man fellow, again, some sort of Johnny Weissmuller type of fellow that they give a ridiculous name to. And she's really George Schmidlap is really the love of her life that she can't ever get out of her mind. But somehow Tony Randall, playing Rockwell Hunter, ends up meeting her, and because he knows where she's staying, because his daughter is somehow privy to this secret information of where she's at, and because she's trying to make her boyfriend, this Tarzan fellow, whoever it is, this Tarzan type of ape man movie guy, jealous, and he happens to come through the door, she chooses him to be the beau that she's running around with to make her boyfriend jealous. The boyfriend, of course, mouths off to all the gossip people in Hollywood, and all of a sudden it turns out that Rockwell Hunter, who has been basically a nobody, just somebody, some ad guy out of New York, is now splashed on all the movie pages as the love interest, known as the lover doll to the sexiest woman alive, the number one starlet. And this, of course, changes his life. All of a sudden, he becomes a huge success. Everybody, of course, and this is really what the film is about, is how fleeting success is, how ridiculous celebrity is, and how somebody really did nothing becomes front page news everywhere, all over the world. And of course, every single country is made fun of in all these sort of ridiculous type of newspapers. There's a lot of jokes that have double entendres, as I said before. I can't really say it's for Yeshivavite in its time. There is enough, but it comes at you fast and furious. In terms of the supporting cast, the love interest, Betsy Drake, is in there, who plays his long-suffering secretary, who, instead of being, she is jealous and drops a flower pot on his head, but then she's committed to, like all women in America, to turn themselves into the va-va-voom figure of Rita Marlowe. And of course, at all the women's stores, there's all these artificial ways for these women to sort of assume the hourglass shape that was so beloved at the time. And that's part of what Tashlin is making fun of America's males' obsession, is the unbridled libido ruling everything. Besides the commercials, in the middle of the movie, Tony Randall breaks the fourth wall as Tony Randall and says, since most of you sitting there all have televisions, so I don't want you to feel bad coming to a movie theater not having the homey feeling of a television. So just like in television, you never see the whole program through. This is a break. And then the screen starts fluttering, and you see snow and some of the other problems that all black and white televisions at the time had in terms of, the picture being fuzzy and going out of focus. And again, really taking the hammer to what television could do.
I was the weird kid who would just look at the static snow and
enjoy that. Yeah. By the way, the Tarzan fellow is Bobo Branigansky, and they never changed his name. Bobo Branigansky, the jungle man. There's also, I just want to point out, an amazing turn by John Williams. It's not John Williams, the composer. It's John Williams, the British actor, who always played the Scotland Yard detective in Dial M for Murder and many other films. Somehow, he is the head of this New York ad firm, and he's known as Mr. LaSalle Jr. Again, how do you have this Englishman, as stuffed shirt as they come, playing this role? But I think John Williams couldn't resist it because, again, I'm going to spoil things here a little bit, because it turns out, of course, that he doesn't really believe that he's worth it. And that really, what he'd like to do is grow the perfect rose. He'd like to, he has enough money anyway from his dad. He'd like to just go into horticulture and grow the perfect rose, which he ends up doing after it turns out that through all the success that Rockwell receives, not only does he get the key to one of the executive washrooms and become a vice president. And of course, that is considered like the ultimate status, being able to use the bathroom the way you want to. But also, eventually, he becomes the head of the company. Right? The importance of this account rockets him to the top of the company. And John Williams reveals when he says to him, "Call me by my first name," his name is Irving. Can you imagine John Williams known as Irving? It's like, right. Henry Jones, who you might know, played a lot of these parts of these pencil pushers and people part of the Madison Avenue or Basic Industrial Complex. Henry Jones was a character actor that was, I think he was probably in, he was in 250, according to this, 215 different films. But anyway, Henry Jones plays his best friend, also a Harvard guy who's dealing with his daughter seeing a psychiatrist, who ends up like incredibly with Joan Blondell. Somehow Joan Blondell, who is Rita Marlowe's secretary, Jane Mansfield's secretary, somehow they end up enmeshed together. And, there's a lot of crazy little dancing. There's a number of musical numbers that are just thrown in there for nowhere. And there is a cameo by a brother of someone we mentioned last week, who shows up in a very important cameo. So I don't want to say anything more than that. I really feel that this film is incredibly how well it's aged. You would think a film that was supposed to be humorous in 1957, now after we've been through assassinations and after we've been through the Vietnam War and Watergate and the horrible aspects of the civil rights struggle, and everything else that has occurred post that, you would think that this is probably just a dated piece of, only a film geek would appreciate it. I really don't think so. I think the statements that it makes about celebrity culture are still correct. The thing that it says about our obsession and fascination with women just because of the way they look is still 100% true. Again, television, of course, is become very prestigious, but it's still fun to knock around television because we know how important, whether it's like the old days or not, the advertising that is still a very important part of television, the commercials, they aren't anymore for cigarettes. They're more for products, various drug products and other things like that. But still, television, I think, can recognize itself in this satire. Again, even though it goes on like for an hour and a half, you do not feel like, oh, this film is just dragging you. It does not feel that way at all. Jane Mansfield, of course, she was only 34 years old when she died. And, her life was clearly quite tragic. And people, of course, talked about the Marilyn Monroe's own tragic death. But this film, I think, exploits her in the best possible way. She's in on the joke and she's having a fun time. Much of the other things Jane Mansfield did, and you can catch her on YouTube when you check out some of old What's My Lines and other things like that. And you can see that, she was only, she never really was able to ascend the way she had been. She was only, again, 34 years old, and she was killed in a car crash on June 29th, 1967.
She was only 24 when she made it.
Right. She was born in 1933. She was only 24 years old. And you really see she's quite polished, in this. And, I don't know what the relationship of Marilyn had with her. I assume that, Marilyn was probably okay with it. I think Marilyn herself probably tired of all the attention she was getting and the fan clubs that arose to her for it. And there's a number of allusions to her trying to be a serious actress the same way, Marilyn, of course, made her attempts. So again, Tashlin said about this film, I was able to do everything I wanted. And in that sense, I share in his joy. When we've talked about so many Hollywood auteurs, so many people who had a vision who weren't able to bring it to film, either because they were shackled by the studio heads or the wrong leading man, the wrong leading lady, just, the difficulties. Many have spoken about this. So I think this is just great to celebrate as a type of film that the director and writer, it's exactly what he wanted to put on the screen. And it's surprisingly, like I said, it has aged very, very well. And, I think that, there's some Easter eggs if you watch it a second time, but it's worth a shot. So that's it, my friends. Watch your step on the way out. We'll catch you next time. Be well. Thanks for joining us for another episode from the Yeshiva of Newark at IDT Podcast. Be sure to subscribe on your favorite podcast app so you don't miss a single episode.